What's up, everybody? Welcome. Welcome. So, welcome to the live stream today. First of all, I have a question for you guys before we get started. Like, how long can I continue to drive the man fear joke into the ground? Like, should I keep that like indefinitely? Because I'm sure there are new people coming in to watch this that are like, "What the hell is that? Like, why, why is there somebody that is like Lanfear but with a man's face?" And so I guess I'm curious, should I keep it or not? We'll have to figure that out because I'm sure some people are like, "What the hell?" But welcome to the live stream. We're going to talk a lot about the Wheel of Time today. I have a very, very special guest. I promise I won't troll you like last week when I said I had Barney Harris as a guest and I lied. This week, though, I do have a pretty special guest. He's a good friend of mine. We're going to go ahead and bring on Seth from WoTSpoilers. What's up?
Hey, Nae'Blis, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Well, welcome. So,
Thank you for having me on. I'm really excited to join you on your live stream. Yeah, I hear
for...
they're the talk of the town, and
totally.
yeah,
talk of all the towns,
all
man.
the towns.
I mean,
yeah.
Right? It's crazy how many people. So
it is a little crazy, actually, how many people
right?
are getting into Wheel of Time right now for some reason.
Nuts,
yeah,
man.
I can't imagine what the reason is.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Has there been something going on with it?
Yeah, nothing I know about.
For those of my viewers who have no effing clue who you are, which is probably none, but nevertheless, it's still worth assuming that somebody might not know who you are.
I hope there are some, or else I'm wasting my time here.
Right? Well, that's true. You make a good point.
But no, I'm Seth. I do a podcast called WoTSpoilers. It's about 4 years old, and we're coming up on 390-ish episodes. So
now,
it's a chapter by chapter read through podcast that obviously no holds barred. We do a lot of spoilers.
So let me ask you a question. I know you've never been asked this before.
Oh, I lost you.
Can you hear me? I'm still here, right? Did I lose you?
Sorry about that.
And you're back.
Yep.
And we're back. Yep. Okay. I was going to ask you, does your podcast, do you guys do spoilers on your podcast?
You know, there's if you're concerned about spoilers, you may just want to be a little careful when consuming any of our content because it's full of spoilers. Yeah.
So
yeah, it's full of spoilers.
How many times have you been asked, does your podcast have spoilers in it, when the name of the podcast is WoTSpoilers? Like, how often has that happened to you?
To be honest, more than you would think, right? Because occasionally someone will be like, is it spoilers just for one book, or is it the whole thing, or is it just up to the point where you're reading? Or so there's clarification about that. Sometimes guests will just be like, can I say this? Is that like it? You know, it's like when someone curses. It's the same thing. Like, oh, you're okay with cursing? And I'm like, yeah, totally. And it's said in the question is said in the exact same way, with the exact same like, maybe I'm going to offend somebody with this.
Well, I have been a guest, and I have just troll you and ask you that question because I know better. So yeah, you guys should check out WoTSpoilers. Now, more importantly, you have a busy week ahead of you, mister.
We do, yeah. So
what is going on?
Over the 4 years I've been doing the podcast, a bunch of people started getting together and drinking every year, and that's evolved into something we call SpoilerCon. And so last year we tried to have it, and something happened that prevented us. And so this one's been about 2 years in the making, and it has been just an absolute blast to put together. It's, you know, certainly not a con in the traditional sense, right? This is only a few steps up from a bunch of people getting together and drinking, but we have a bunch of really cool online panelists who are going to come together and basically have a chance to talk to people in the room, while at the same time, like, we've got a hotel room for a weekend, and we're going to have a lot of fun talking about Wheel of Time. And that's going to be broadcast out to people who are interested in seeing the panelists or seeing live events.
Who are some of your panelists?
Well, the people who have told me they're coming include Matt Hatch, you know, so Manfear hopefully may make an appearance, but I think just Matt Hatch. I've heard from Daniel Green that he plans on doing a panel. I have Wheel Weaves folks. I've got the Tarvalin TV podcast folks. I've got just a whole slate of people who are going to just call in and do stuff, and that's just sort of the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
So we've
Well,
got costume contests, we've got trivia contests. It's going to be fun. It's going to be fun.
It will be. I mean, if you guys like talking about the Wheel of Time, these little conventions are great. I know we kind of joked about it on Tarvalin After Dark on our podcast. We were talking about, wouldn't it be cool if we had another convention? Well, here's the thing. We do. And it's SpoilerCon.
It is. Yeah.
So I know people cannot, if they wanted to, they can't up and fly out to Portland, right? Like you guys are capped out at your in-person.
We are, and it's it's this weekend, so you have 4 days, and we had to make a few plans, so we had to say no more tickets for 3 days beforehand.
But
However,
you are still accepting online.
We are still accepting online tickets. We are charging a small fee just to help cover some of the technology fees and make sure that I don't end up going into severe debt to make this happen. But please support me. Support the event. It's been. I can't understate how hard it's been to plan an event this year.
Yeah.
The number of plans that have been made and unmade and remade and changed completely around. The hotel has worked with us in so many different ways. They have been so accommodating, but at the same time, there's contracts that have been signed and stuff like that. So, it's just been one of those events that it was supposed to be a simple little fun thing, and it's been more than that.
Well,
but I'm so excited. I cannot wait for all the people who are going to show up. I've been in contact with so many of the guests that I'm just they're friends of mine, a lot of whom I met at or have hung out with at JordanCon, and then again at SpoilerCon. So
yeah. Well, I'll tell you, it was a lot of fun because I got to hang out with you at JordanCon. That was the first time we'd obviously met in person.
That was
and now we're best friends. So,
we are pretty good friends, though. I mean,
yeah, we are.
We actually spent a lot of time chatting and talking, and it's been amazing how much that connection that we made at JordanCon has kept itself alive.
Well, we went and got some. What did we get? Korean barbecue.
Yeah.
We had a lot of fun. So highly recommend going to cons. This is a con you guys can go to, and you can be a part of it online. And then, of course, 2 weeks from then, we have the Comic-Con where you can also get an online ticket. So all kinds of online events right now.
What do you think is going to happen at Comic-Con?
That's a great question. I think that's a great question. I think it's worth moving on and asking that. So it's a segue. What do I think is going to happen at Comic-Con? I talked about this in a video. I think we're going to see a lot of the cast. I think they're going to be kind of featuring most of the main cast. And I actually think that's why we got the Barney Harris news when we did. I think that was probably somewhat deliberate. Now that
you think that was a drop, not a leak?
They did not hesitate to confirm it.
Gotcha.
Let's just say that. Right? There was no, they immediately responded when people reached out. Yep, true.
Yeah.
So, there wasn't even a waiting period with that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
And I think because of that, it could be a leak. But it could have been something that was going to come out anyway. So they just decided, hey, screw it, we're gonna come out, roll with it.
I mean, at this point, I think they know that once we know something, it's out. There's no point in hiding it. The fandom will tear apart any little clue that we get.
Absolutely,
we'll unblur anything.
Well, that's what Matt Hatch is for. Yeah. But yeah, so what do I think we're going to get? I think we're going to get a lot of stuff with the cast. I am on the fence. It is the right time that I think we would probably be around that time that we're going to get the longer trailer. That being said, I also am not convinced we're going to get a trailer. I would not be shocked, though, if we got a 3 or 4 minute clip of the show. And not necessarily the trailer.
See, that to me feels very much in the vein of the back of books, right? You remember when you were a kid and you'd pick up a book, and the only way to discover whether or not you were going to read the next one is they'd include that first chapter of the next book in the back of the previous book. I think a lot of the old Wheel of Time books had that, if I'm not completely off my rocker. Or at least they had a segment. Maybe I could be completely wrong about that. It's been a while since I was a child. But yeah, I would love to see them do something similar and just include a clip that is a continuous bit of storyline. Because the one thing about the teaser trailer is how many 1 second, half second cuts were in that thing, right? they gave us a lot, but they didn't give us a lot of any one thing.
Well, and it comes down to what the purpose of a teaser trailer is, because that trailer was designed for non-readers to basically go, wow, look at that, cool, bang, blow up, magic, like
I mean, it did
building,
that for
like
readers too. Don't get me
it
wrong.
did,
Like I had the same
it
reaction.
did. But I don't think they were trying to convey the plot necessarily,
No,
right? Like they
there was
weren't
no
trying to
plot.
say, here's what this is about. They were just showing us stuff. This next trailer, I think, will be a lot more character and plot focused. Now, we'll probably see some things, but again, I dropped a video today that talked about things that were not in the trailer that we also know are in the first season of the show, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there are a number of those, and there's actually more even than I talked about in the video. So there are a number of things that we still have yet to see that we know are also in the first season. And so I think I would not be shocked to see the trailer around that time, because, like I said, it's about a month and a week away from when it's going to release, right? So that's probably when we're going to get that trailer. I just am leaning more into a clip and then the trailer coming out sometime shortly after that. That's just a thought. I have no real reason for thinking that, but more just it's a hunch.
You know,
So,
I do a lot of, especially around the TV stuff. I'm watching you to find things out because I'm such a book nerd. That
mhm.
this whole TV and video genre it's very new to me, right? Like
Yeah.
I do audio and spoken word most of the time. So, the mysteries of when trailers drop and why the marketing team does certain things, that to me is Greek, right?
Mhm.
I'm just sitting here being, I can't wait for content to analyze, which is why I love the teaser trailer so much, because
Uh-huh.
that was actual content, and that's why we put out an hour and a half video about it, because that was content, and that's
Right?
why I don't do a lot of just speculation video and news videos and stuff like that,
Yeah.
because but I
Well,
really appreciate that you do it.
well, I was talking about that trailer. So it's a 2-minute trailer. I made a 27-minute video to analyze a 2-minute trailer, and that took probably 20 to 22 hours or so of work to make it. And then I'm
Yeah.
thinking like, oh God, when we get a 50-minute episode, what am I going to do?
What
Like,
what about when you get three of them
or three of them at once,
at
right?
once? That's the
Um,
crazy thing. Yeah.
it is kind of nuts to think about how that's going to work. And so I know that's something that has not only me, but a lot of other content creators kind of like, okay, got to think through this. How am I going to do this? And I think right now I'm kind of settling into like making 2 and 3 videos in that first, like for each episode. I want to do kind of a breakdown, like a recap. I want to do a breakdown with like Easter eggs, sort of like my trailer breakdown, where it's like, stop, look at that thing in the background. Like, see that?
Right.
Like,
Right.
because I love those. Those are actually the things I'm excited to make, even though they take a lot of time. And,
And
and
that's what I
then,
want to do as well, is
uh-huh,
like really get into the detail. But one of the things I want to do is put it in context of the books,
yeah.
because I feel like that's something that I can do, that a lot of other shows aren't going to want to do, because they're going to be like, so here's what's going on now, but I don't want to spoil the whole thing. I'm going to be like, yeah, no, here's the spoilers. Here's how that fits into the whole storyline.
Well, and that brings the third video that I think I want to try to make if I have time to do it is comparing the TV show to to each episode. So like how much of this is different, what's changed, that kind of thing. So, it nope, there we go. Now,
Thank you,
Lumen,
Lumen.
I appreciate you. I have a question though, because you didn't indicate it, and normally you have to indicate that you want the wig. Just saying. And I don't see that in yours, so I'm gonna, on a technicality, I'm not gonna put the wig on here. But thank you for the tip. And it says, I pray for. Oops, I put it off. I pray for all of the content creators' souls come November 19th. Me too. Me too. We're all like, it's funny because we're all looking forward to it, but we're all also like anxious for like, gosh, I got to get this right. I got to get this
Right.
right. How am I going to do it? Like that kind of thing. So
And
appreciate the tip though.
one thing I discovered is being out first matters when
Mm-hmm.
stuff drops. Like, we all had that realization when the trailer came out, that people wanted to watch it, and there was a
Yeah.
bigger pop on the stuff that came out earlier and a lesser pop on the stuff that came out later. So there is a
Yep.
huge incentive to get it out as soon as you can. So
Well, and I know I'll never be the first one. It's
no.
not who I am. Um, Now here we go. See, Rachel Sadai, thank you for the $9.99. However, no wig in the tip.
Yep.
I'm just
Yep.
saying, no wig there. So you got to indicate, but I do appreciate it. Now Jason got me.
Yeah.
Why you got to
Yeah, he
wig
did.
bait me? So here we go. We got Boris Johnson. This wig has definitely seen better days. I like the strap that's hanging down. I'll have to
It's really.
touch that up.
I feel like I've seen that in other videos where it was
Mm-hmm.
looking a little bit better. Like it actually like was holding together. Now you've got this sort of Karen Peacock looking thing going on.
It's beautiful. It's
It
beautiful.
is.
Marissa Swank, tips for Ricappa to pick out your next wig. Also, wig, please. See, that's how it's done. I appreciate it, Marissa or Marisa. I hope I'm not saying it wrong. I probably am. One of those is wrong. So, but yes, now we got the wig, so you get to look at me trying to have a serious conversation while looking like this. So,
Is
but
that
what do you think we're gonna get at the Comic Con? Like, what's your, if you had to be a betting man, what are you betting on?
I mean, I absolutely think trailer, right? Like I think that they want to drop a trailer at the con. They want to show it to a lot of people. They want to show it to a big group. They want to do it in New York. They've gotten the teaser trailer to get the word out, to get the excitement up, to get the people who are like in the media a chance to like remember what the hell's going on in the story and
Mm-hmm.
get their stories wrong. As we've seen a few stories come out that are just absolutely atrocious. So I'm glad they've done that, but I do think that now is the time to get this trailer going, and then just once you've got a trailer out, you can start hitting the media hard,
Yeah.
without. And I'm not sure how far they're trying to go with their media, but we've been talking about this media blitz and the fact that
Mm-hmm.
fans are going to be drowning in content, and I'm like, okay, teaser trailer, definitely content, not drowning it.
No.
So I do expect more to be coming out, and it seems like it's been long enough since the teaser. The buzz around that has died off. No one's making content about it anymore. It's
What are
time
you
to
lying? What are you talking about? I just put out a video today about it. What are you talking about? You are full of
anymore.
it.
That was your
You are
last video.
full of it.
That was it. That was done.
You're
You're
full of it.
done. I'm cutting you off. Fewer people are making content about it anymore. It's now become memed at that point. So yeah, I do think it's time for, and I'm sure we're gonna see a lot. I think we're gonna see a lot of the same clips, just maybe with some more detail around
Sure.
them.
Yeah, I think they want to be careful on, like, the fact that we don't have episode titles for episode 7 and 8 tells us that they're still trying to conceal stuff. Like,
Mhm.
why would you have released episode titles for the first 6 episodes and then tell us literally nothing about episode 7 and 8? Like, we're not going to see anything from that, right? So I
Yeah.
just, it is it is very interesting. Now, I'll tell you, because the next big movie that comes out, I want to say, what is it? Next week we get. I remember seeing something comes out next week. What is it? In the movie theaters, because Amazon heavily
We did
invests.
Dune, right? And then
That's November. Venom
Venom.
comes. The new Venom is probably the next. I would not be shocked to see a purchased ad prior to the movie, because they tend to do that, and I've seen tons of YouTube ads of the trailer. So,
Do
like,
you,
they're on my, I know they play on my videos, because I've seen comments about it. But
how much of an overlap between the MCU and Wheel of Time sort of audiences do you think there is?
I mean, the MCU is such a broad audience that who don't they overlap with?
Well, okay, that's fair. That's fair.
You know,
But like the people who are specifically like watching detailed like videos about like Doctor Strange and how he's going to create the multiverse and all that kind of
mhm.
stuff, and like, um, I wonder if
Well,
those people are just really into the details of that kind of stuff.
I think that those audiences probably overlap quite a bit, and the reason I say that is some of the biggest YouTubers cover that stuff.
Hmm.
So I'll give you a couple that I watch, like New Rock Stars and Emergency Awesome are two pretty big pop culture YouTubers. They cover the MCU, they cover The Witcher,
Hmm.
they cover, like, so they cover Stranger Things. Like, that audience is who their audience is, and I would not be shocked to see them cover the Wheel of Time if it's good.
I was gonna say, do you think we
Um,
have to shank some competition? Is that what's going on?
well, I'll tell you another one I saw. So not nearly as big as them, but In Deep Geek is a big Westworld, um, Lord of the Rings, and what was the other? He fought Game of Thrones. big YouTuber, like million subscribers, something like that. Not as big as some of those other guys, but still big.
Mm-hmm.
And he tweeted out the other day, "Ooh, what on Prime? Should I dust off my Dragon Reborn copy and keep reading or something like that?" And so there's an implication that some of the larger, like the bigger YouTubers are going to do that. And I'm all in favor of that because, again, when the way YouTube works is it really is. I hate the term usually a rising tide raises all ships because I think it's used out of context all the time. But in this case, it really is true though, because the more people that have eyeballs on that, the more people that watch and get in, that start checking out podcasts and think, oh, I didn't know there was even media around this. Right.
And I've been asked that question before. Matt actually asked me that question. Are you concerned about a bunch of people getting into creating Wheel of Time content? My answer's always been no. Like the more of us, the more voices, the more people start consuming it, you find your niche, you find what you're looking for. Not every content creator is making content for every consumer of content, and having a community, all that can do is lead the right people to me to consume what I'm producing. Yeah. So.
You know what? I actually thought about this, and here's the troll in me coming out. If you want to be, I'll give this as advice to anybody here watching the channel. If you want to have a pretty large fan base in the Wheel of Time community and carve out a niche that doesn't exist yet, what you should do is create a racist, sexist, and homophobic YouTube channel, because apparently there's lots of those people that can't find a home commenting on my video. I had to tell a guy to F off today because he was like, now they need to recast Egwene and Nynaeve and blah, 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 because the Black Lives Matter. And it's like, dude, you can F off and get blocked from my channel. So yeah, if you want to have some success, guys, there's a whole bunch of racists out there that need a YouTuber to follow.
People have had success appealing to that crowd. It's not. That's.
I'm joking. Please don't do that.
Don't do that.
Don't give those people a home.
Yeah.
But yeah, nevertheless, like the community though is growing. And I think that's kind of fun. Like, I think I was looking up, so I've been following the Google Trends. And since the Wheel of Time trailer came out, at one point, and I haven't checked it since, Wheel of Time search results were up 750% over the peak. So not just over like the month before, it was like 750% over the peak of Wheel of Time interest. So that means like there's a ton of people that were like, oh shoot, trailer, right?
TV has a different audience than books. It's just on a different scale. It's logarithmically bigger. Like so many more people sit down and watch TV and are interested in TV and consuming content about TV, as opposed to a 14-book series. Like it has always been such a high bar for entry, and that's something I've seen a lot of people who are very excited about this TV show, that it gives them an entry point for their friends and family.
Yeah,
that it gets the low bar, and that's. For me, that more than anything else is what I'm excited about the TV show about. As long as it's good enough to introduce people to the books. And I know it's a book-centric way of looking at things, but I'm a book-centric person, that's really, I mean, I'm going to enjoy the show, but am I going to pick it apart because the hilt is different than no, I just need it to be good enough to bring people to the books. And that's a very broad brush.
Sure. I think it will. I think even if it's not good, it'll probably still bring people to the books because it has interest. But I am looking at this, and I suppose this has helped me because I've been accused multiple times as being an Amazon shill, which I think is hilarious, because I haven't been too negative on the production so far. There's things I'm certainly not happy about, but I'm also not like this show sucks or it's going to be terrible, or because I think part of it is very early on. I really settled in even before Brandon coined the term. I really kind of bought into the idea that this is another turning of the wheel, if you will.
I don't think he was the first one to say that.
That it's a literal word for word adaptation. And so I think because I didn't have that expectation, I'm able to look at some of the changes, I think, from a different viewpoint and just kind of say, you know what? It's not a big deal. Like Tom not playing the harp and playing a guitar. Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, at the end of the day, like you can say, well, it matters so much, but it really doesn't. Other than one line he says about a farmer's fingers couldn't handle, like, it doesn't matter that much.
It does. And there's things in the books that I truly love. There are lines that I really, really, really love that aren't going to be in the show, and scenes that aren't going to be in the show because of changes like that. they're still in the books,
right?
you know, and the changes they make in the show make the show better. You know, so I was saying like a word for word adaptation is never going to be good. Is never going to be good. So I'm
Well,
very
I
excited.
would still watch it.
Yeah,
To be very clear, I would watch a word for word adaptation. I just don't think
absolutely.
it would draw in everybody
No,
else. And that's I guess where I stand on it. I would love to see it. That doesn't
sure.
change the fact I would love to see it. But I don't think anybody else would.
And that's when people are like, oh, are we going to have 17 episodes, 17 seasons of Wheel of Time? And I'm like, well, if they did a word for word adaptation, yes, you would have to, but that's
Oh
not
yeah.
what they're doing, you know. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see it. I'm
Ginge
excited to,
Reed.
but I also don't
Real quick
want.
here, hold
Oh
on,
yeah,
Seth,
go
real
ahead.
quick. Ginge Reed. I think a lot of the changes are probably made to appeal to the layman too, not just the Watt cult.
Agreed.
I agree with you, and it's good to know that someone else in the chat doesn't have a soul either. So I'm glad that you're here. Ginge Reed. I think I'm pronouncing that right. So, but I agree with you. I think they're making they have to make the show. They're in this to make money. They're not going to invest $100+ million in a season of a show without the intention to make money. Would you?
Right.
Right?
No. Well, yeah. I mean,
It's not. I mean, it's not just a passion
mhm,
project. It can be
mhm,
a passion project that's meant to make money, and to do that, they have to pull in the Game of Thrones crowd. I hate to
yeah.
keep invoking Game of Thrones, but like that's the most popular fantasy adaptation. Really, I mean, that's in TV form. I can't think of anything that even approaches that.
I mean, Harry
Right?
Potter. I mean, that's a
But on
movie.
TV,
Oh
it's a
yeah,
movie.
well, yes, on
Yeah,
TV, no,
like
no, of course not. No,
no.
I would say that we have blurred the lines between TV and movies over the
Mhm.
last, especially the last 2 years, right? Like so many movies are being released on TV. Disney Plus is doing these weird at home releases, the and we're getting movie quality television on a regular basis.
Mhm.
So it the line is blurry.
Yep. Well, I think especially is now. I mean, the MCU is even changing things. I mean,
Mhm.
I would argue the TV shows that Marvel has been releasing are better than their movies,
I
in
would
my
agree
opinion.
with you 100%. Yeah.
So I think that's almost a new, like, people are starting to realize if I were an artist that was interested in making really good content, I would be far more interested in creating a TV show than a movie, because the movie you really have to tell a very succinct story in 2 hours. That does
Hmm.
not lend itself well to an adaptation, especially on like fantasy
Hmm.
literature, right? Where I don't.
So I was listening to the Grey Warders podcast today. Shout out, great fucking podcast. Sorry.
Yeah, you can say
And
whatever you want.
and she was talking about how the first three books really are told in the succinct story movie like way, and
Mhm.
how that does sort of hinder the quality of those books. And it's not until book four where you really start to see a more expansive, less wrapped up
Yeah.
story in one book that I feel like Jordan starts to shine. I mean, and that's why I've said, Shadow Rising is my favorite book by far. It's like
Well,
the intro to the whole
oh,
series.
well, it's
Yeah.
the best book I think by most measures. But I would say this back to one of the things you said earlier. I don't think people like I would watch a word for word adaptation, but I don't think people understand how boring a word for word adaptation of The Eye of the World would be, because it literally follows. If you break down the chapters, 92% of the book is Rand's point of view.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine just following Rand everywhere Rand goes, and then occasionally, like, they have to adapt that because nobody wants to watch that,
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
right?
It's
In
not how
fact,
we tell stories in the visual medium.
no, it's not, and it's just that was never going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
It was never going to happen, and there's a lot of repetitive things that you can get away with in writing. Like, we can't have Rand and Matt stop in 5 different towns in a row and be chased by dark friends in every town. Like, I get what they're going for in that. If we can convey that they're terrified and they feel like around every corner they're being hunted, right?
Yeah.
That's really the concept that they have to get. They don't need to go to 5 towns in the show
No.
to
Well,
show that,
and the
right?
other thing that I really like is that he's adapting the series as a whole, which means he's got to make a lot of changes to the
Mm-hmm.
first book to make it fit in with the rest of the
Yep.
series. The book one is the odd man out, right? It always has been, right?
Yep.
Like it's the prologue to the rest of the series. It's the
Right.
Lord of the Rings fan fiction, whatever you want to call it. It's different than the rest of the series, and it's so centered in Rand's POV when the whole rest of the series is all about different POVs.
Yeah.
You have to get away from that. You have to. And so I love the expanded Logain stuff, right? I think that's a
Mhm.
great way to show something happening on the other side of the world. I like that we're getting into the White Tower. We're seeing that power dynamic, which isn't in Eye of the World, right?
So,
Yeah.
what do you think is happening with Logain? What's the storyline that you think is going on in season 1 from what you've seen?
I mean, he's been captured by the Reds. Obviously, after our group splits at Shadow Logoth, the Moraine Lan group runs into them. There appears to be he's imprisoned. There appears to be an attack by the Dragonsworn. At the same time, he breaks out from his prison, maybe because of the attack. Very Rand in the box.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, Moraine is injured. In order to heal her, they have to maybe get her back to the White Tower, and that's how she ends up in the White Tower.
Interesting. Do you think that Logain gets captured? Like, do you think he actually makes it to the White Tower?
Do you think he's
Do you
captured and
do you
recaptured?
think he gets gentled in season 1?
I mean, I think he's going to be the big bad of season 1, right? Like,
Here's the only reason I
Yeah.
don't think that.
yeah,
Here's where, because Rafe said early on, he made
like,
a comment that there was a scene with Logain that was heartbreaking. What else could that be that we would be heartbroken? You wouldn't be heartbroken for the villain necessarily if he's portrayed as the villain. Now he could be an anti-hero. He
yeah,
could be,
yeah. I put
right?
villain in big quotes, right? I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of. I don't think Wheel of Time is going to have a lot of villain. God, that sounds so stupid because we have the Forsaken, we have the Dark One, we have, but like, I don't think we're gonna have a lot of characters who are not unnuanced, if that makes sense, who are one-dimensionally bad.
I agree with that, and
Yeah.
I hope that's the case actually, because I don't want this. Now I see. Sorry to switch this real quick, but I'm seeing a common thread, and I'm wondering. It's making me pose a question here. So I see we need a WotCon in Fort Worth, and then I see, excuse me, and then I see we need a WotCon in Minnesota for the Great Lakes region. I have a question for you. Here's a mini poll for everybody. If there was another convention, would you be interested in going to it? Like, if there was another Wheel of Time convention, like, would you go to both Jordan Con and another convention? I'm curious to know. And while you guys answer that, Jay Diggity, Logain is a red herring. Love what you do, Nae'Blis. Thank you.
Yeah.
May you find water and shade. You are very appreciative of a dark friend, so I appreciate you, man. Thank you. So yeah, as you guys are answering that, well, I see a bunch of you, 100% hell yes.
By the way,
so maybe. Okay.
if you want to toss me that wig, we can see if someone can pay to put me on. Yeah. Go ahead and toss that to me.
Toss it to you. Here.
Yeah. Oh, thanks. There we go.
Got it.
So, yeah, that was a fun.
You like that? That was sweet, right there.
Yeah,
like
pre-planned.
You like that? But well, okay. So let's shift here because you're very much a book person, and we're talking a lot about the show, but I also do want to talk some about the books because what are, and we'll kind of tie that together. Maybe not so much for season 1, but what are some things from the books that you personally are the most excited to see adapted? Like, what are some things that are like, they must adapt this? Like, I have to see this thing. What are some of those for you in the books?
The Crossing of the Streams.
Yeah.
Yeah, I come back to that moment as such a central point for these books. I know it's quite a bit in the future. It's not early on, but like, so much of the metaphysics of the books I feel is based around the Crossing of the Streams and the Balefire with one power and true power, and how those interact, and how that creates a link between Rand and the dark side, and how that then leads to the body swap. Like, all of that just feels so vital, and also like the coolness of Balefire, the paradoxness of it, right? Like, how do you portray that? It's such a different thing with the power.
You know what? I It brings up something to me because lately I've been watching some YouTube videos that were reviewing Game of Thrones.
Hmm.
Okay, and what you're bringing up, like one thing that I thought was really cool, that I think obviously of the many things that Game of Thrones dropped the ball on, but not paying off some of their more psychological or what's the word I'm looking for?
Mystical.
Philosophical
Mm.
things, like when they're talking about like Bran being the three-eyed raven and going back in time and then somehow manipulating the past to help him in the, like, right, all of
Yeah,
that,
there's no payoff for that. Yeah.
right? There was no real payoff to it, but it was very cool in concept when we saw it, right? And I'm almost thinking like in Wheel of Time, like I would love, like you're talking about the crossing of the streams, the almost the philosophical degree of like, okay, if you bale fire, what does that do, right? What are
Especially if
the
they're holding
effects of that,
hands.
right? And that does actually play a major role. I mean, hey guys, it's spoilers, but that does play a major role in the last battle.
Yeah.
And it was something that was set up, what, in book 6, right? Book
Seven.
6 or book 5, book 6,
Seven.
7. Gosh, man,
Crown of
already.
Swords, book 7.
But yeah, it all of those things tie together, and I like those. Like, I feel like that's one thing Wheel of Time has, is you do have these philosophical discussions. Like
Hmm.
one that I always bring up: can the shadow actually win?
Right.
And philosophically, I don't believe they can, because if the Wheel of Time is an infinite, we're going to keep spinning. Then,
See, I have a caveat on it. I don't think they can unless Rand gives up.
but how does that affect the? But I don't think Rand can give up.
Mm.
You
So you,
understand? Because the nature of infinity is, if it's spun infinity times, at one point, if the dark one wins and it breaks the wheel, right?
mhm.
Then then he can't win, because the wheel would have been broken. Okay, if it spins infinity times, it would have happened already, and since it hasn't happened, it can't happen. That's some
There
that's
is a
some philosophy
there's
for you.
there is a philosophical discussion, because like you can also apply that to like, well, I guess we in our current universe we do see a progression forward in time, right? We don't see an
Uh-huh.
infinite spinning backwards. We can actually document that there is this sort of beginning and progression forward, which in the Wheel of Time universe, apparently the sun doesn't burn hydrogen. So there is that. Like,
Right? Or maybe it gets reset. Who knows? Real quick
yeah,
here. Oh gosh, ceramicable. I hope I did that right. I was thinking about this the other day. Play Dumais Wells as a horror-esque scene, not heroic, just scary. I agree. I think it should be a Battle of the Bastards on steroids. People's heads blowing up,
totally,
magic, like people
totally.
throwing up because it's disgusting, because it should be.
But
Like
I'm not
Perrin
looking
literally
forward to
throws
that.
up on the battlefield.
I am not looking forward to that. Like, it needs to be
Yep.
in the show, but when you ask me like, what do you want to see? Like, I'm not like a blood and guts horror. Like, that is not what makes my clock
Hmm.
tick. So I think it needs to be in there, and I will watch it, and I will be excited about it because it's Dumais Wells.
Right.
But uh, it's not what I'm like. It's not why the Wheel of Time needs to be on TV to me. Does that make sense?
See, I think that's a scene that needs to be adapted, because I feel like it sets the tone. Like it's that
Hmm.
is your, in my opinion, there are two moments that are very similar. Again, I'm making a references to Game of Thrones here. Sorry. That is one of the Red Wedding esque moments
Sure.
in the show, in my opinion, where it's like, oh shit, like that just happened. Um,
Because
and
up to that point,
I
you
think it's
have
important.
handicapped Aes Sedai, right? And then that
Yeah,
that says this is the power unleashed. That's what it does to human flesh.
yeah. It
Get
also
ready.
shifts the power dynamic
Yeah.
from Aes Sedai to Rand. And you see, I mean, that's the first you see Aes Sedai bowing to Rand and following Rand. And
Hmm.
you also see the beginning of his descent into madness, right? And I mean, that's a very pivotal scene for a number of reasons. And it establishes Taim, it establishes the Ashaman as
Hmm.
being crazy powerful, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
They're not limited like the Aes Sedai are, right? The Aes Sedai can't do that to people. I mean, they're the three oaths keep them from just randomly doing that to people. Um,
Can I tell you what I would love?
What's that?
A Rand in a Box episode, very similar to the Breaking Bad Walt in the vault when he's like, or with the fly. So like that scene where he's going a little nuts and it's just the fly. Like that was an award-winning episode, right?
Yeah.
Like do something like that with Rand in the Box, right? Or went in his prison, right? Like I would love to see like just one episode dedicated to psychological horror of Rand. It might
Totally
be a
agree.
little much, but
Totally agree.
yeah. But that's what the show is so good. It's good at horror. It's good at psychological torture. It's good at and show me your POVs. Like when I go back to Star Trek, right? There are 4 lights.
Yes.
That right? Like
that's a great show.
Great show.
Great episode too.
Yeah, fantastic. And so that's really what if you don't get that reference, look it up. But that's the sort of psychological horror I want with Rand and really getting in people's heads and showing me like there's a lot of mental torture in this series. Like, let's see that.
Well, and I think they need to be able to show mental illness well.
Yes. PTSD
like I want to be able to see the PTSD. I want to actually think Rand is going crazy without Rand thinking he's going crazy.
I think it's also really important to relate to the people in our world who have suffered from traumatic events, especially in the military, but also, in daily life. And how that then can help them relate to those characters. Like, portray that in an honest way, and you'll win over a huge number of fans who are going to relate to those characters.
I totally agree. And I think that's one of the things, believe it or not, like one of my favorite shows right now is Ted Lasso. I never would have thought I would have loved this show, but I love Ted Lasso. And it had a shaky start to season 2, but one of the themes they're addressing is trauma and PTSD. In a show that's supposed to be a comedy, and they're doing it so well. Like the last episode almost had me crying, and I'm like, shit, like this is a comedy with Jason Sudeikis in it.
Right.
But by the way, highly recommend Ted Lasso.
Yeah, everyone keeps saying it's great, and I keep having the same reaction of it's a comedy with. I don't want to watch that, and then everyone is like,
comedy
but
with
it is
a heart.
So good. Yeah,
like it will break you down. Because yes, it's a comedy, but it's like there's so much heart to it, and it's just kindness. And I don't know how else to, like, it's something that you're not going to find on TV. It is something totally in of itself. And it's not perfect by any stretch, but it is something that like I watch every week because I literally love it. And it's an uplifting thing. Real quick here, I don't want to get past this. Dante Must Die 234. Thank you there. If Tom doesn't join until after the split at Shadar Logoth, like I've heard is going to happen, how will him and Moraine meet? It's a good question.
Well, they clearly know each other from the court from way back when. Like, there's no doubt they've met in the past, in my opinion.
Or they know of each other.
They know of each other.
They haven't met, but they know of each other.
I can imagine they've been in the same big ballroom at the same time type situation.
You know what? I got the impression Moraine knew who he was, but he may think of her as just another Aes Sedai, but I think she kind of had an idea of who he was.
What? No, there's no way he missed Damandred as a last name on her. He knows exactly who she is. There's no way he, as the Bard of Camelin and Andor, there's no way he didn't know all the top nobles in Cairhien at the same time. Right?
That's true. That's true. I forgot that.
And being as, she was in her 20s 20 years ago when he was in his prime, that was before Owen, he was a court bard. Like, there's no way he is not intimately aware of who Morghese.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, she is
Moraine
literally the
Damandred
cousin to the king.
Yeah.
So, yes, you're right.
Like, and that's one of the points I think I made when I go back to, again, 4 years ago when I started the podcast. I think the best episode when we truly hit our stride is the conversation between Tom and Moraine. And we read into it and we said, whoa. Based on who these people are, they know exactly who each other is. So wait a minute. Let's look at this conversation from the idea that they know everything about the other person. And then they're having these 3 different conversations on that level. It's such a good conversation. And it's what makes Robert Jordan like so good is that level of writing.
Well, and I love that even in the first couple chapters of Eye of the World, like it is very clear that Tom knows who and what Moraine is.
Yep.
And it is very clear that she knows who and what he is.
Yep.
Because she refers to him in a, like, I don't want to call it a mocking tone, but like almost like a very knowing way, like, oh, Master Bard. Like, right? Like there's a conversation there where they sort of know who each other are. You're right about that. And now, to address how will they technically meet in the show, there are plenty of ways they can pull that off. I mean, he can come up and she may know of him in some way.
Right.
They could meet later on. I mean, they can meet in the Stone of Tyr. Right?
There's so many ways in which I don't know how they're going to introduce Tom, right? If he's introduced after the split,
which I think he is.
Is he introduced to the group as they come back together? Does he meet Matt?
I think he's going to be introduced. He's only in one, maybe 2 episodes, but probably one. And it's probably where Matt and Rand will run into him in a town. And I'm imagining that will be Four Kings or something like that, where Basil Gill is.
He'll be the innkeeper.
They will meet Tom. He'll be the innkeeper. Dana will be there because she's been cast.
Did they change the name? Isn't it Dina or something?
We don't know. It's Dana, but there is a Dina. Dina's from the book, sorry. But yeah, we don't know how that's going to work, but I would imagine the Murdral or something like very similar happens. They befriend Tom. Tom sacrifices himself in some way as they get away. Maybe Dana is killed by the Murdral, right? Like, who knows how that goes?
Yeah.
But they could be separated from Tom and then have Tom come back in next season, right?
There's a lot of stuff that happens at inns that you can say, well, this happens at this inn and this happens at that inn. Let's have it all happen at the same inn. And let's take that innkeeper and just replace them with Basil Gill. And like, that is a good way to compress a lot of different locations and just say, what are the important events that happen at the various inns? Let's all have them happen at one inn and call that Camelin.
Right.
Because like, we're not getting the garden scene. Thank God. I think it's a beautiful...
You don't like the scene where Elaine instantly falls in love with the random boy that falls out of a tree?
Not to mention security, please. Anybody? What's with that garden wall? And then the fact that Matt's able to use it later, that's ridiculous. It's great foreshadowing in the books. It makes no sense in the TV show.
It would look very YA, I think, if you have Elaine falling head over heels for the random boy. And he's so hot, though. I'm in love. Like, that's basically what she does. And it doesn't actually make sense that Morghese would let him go.
No.
It doesn't.
No.
So, hold on. Here we go.
Well, I mean, that's severe. Seth. Double wigs.
Wind Reed.
Here we go.
This is my Sia. This is the way I wear the wig when I want to be Sia.
So let's see.
I can't actually see, so it's not going to work.
Right. I can get this over my headphones. Yeah, that works. There we go.
I like my Karen look, or it's like a cross between Karen and Boris Johnson.
There's some Boris Johnson going on there. Yeah. It's like if you split it down the middle.
Yeah.
Like one half is Boris, one half is Karen.
Well, you're like a full blonde. I think I'm more of like a bleach blonde here.
Yeah. Well, you know, I was going with the natural Gawain, right? Like, so this is I'm doing in SpoilerCon. There is a skit coming up. It is I'll tease it a little bit. It's written by Recappa, the skit, and it is a divorce court between Gawain and Elaine right before the final battle.
Divorce court.
Egwene, sorry. And it's going to be quite funny.
If it was written by Recappa, it would be quite funny.
It. Yeah.
By the way, did you see Recappa's Lego trailer?
Yes. Oh, fantastic.
Gosh,
yeah.
So
I cracked up. She showed me a rough draft before it came out, and I was dying. And then I went and saw the final thing again, and just laughed just as hard.
I mean, I laugh at everything Recappa does. I don't know why more people are not like obsessed with everything Recappa makes. So
it's
more people need to be.
Yeah. That's probably the one thing I'd like to shout out is like, there's so much good content, Wheel of Time content that doesn't get the appreciation that it needs. You know, Podcast of the Dragon by Grey Order is one I always like to shout out because I feel like I learned things. Recappa is so good. There's more. I'm not going to list them.
Have you ever heard of WoTSpoilers? I've heard that's a good podcast.
I wouldn't bother.
You wouldn't check that one out?
Yeah, there's just it's so much. Like by the time you catch up, it's just it's
Where do you recommend? Okay, so if I'm a brand new listener to
yeah.
WoTSpoilers, where do you recommend me starting? We had this discussion on our podcast the other day about
Yeah.
like where do you start with a new podcast? Do you go? Are you one of the people that goes all the way to episode one, or do you just listen to the newest episode when you listen to a new podcast?
Generally, I will listen to the newest episode first just to see where they are and what they're currently doing, and then I will go back and listen to the first one. And depending on the quality, I may skip ahead a few,
Yeah.
because a lot of places the first few episodes are rough.
Ever judge anybody by their first
No,
creation? Ever?
no,
Don't watch my first YouTube video.
definitely not. However, I think we did fantastic on our first episode, so
Yeah.
I recommend. And
Well, yours is good. I think everybody should watch all
absolutely.
399,000 of them. I think they should do that.
So there is that you can, if you want to start. We are the binge, right? You start with the reread. I say listen to Michael Kramer and Kate Redding, listen to me talk about it, and then go read it, and do that for each chapter. And by the time you get through the series, you'll know everything there is to know about
That's a great way of looking at it.
you know.
If you want to hear fart jokes and talk about sexual innuendos and things like that, then you can listen to Tarval and After Dark, because that's pretty much what we do there is we do dumb shit.
You do that really well. Although the written skits are funny. And that's something I've never done. Is I've always done unscripted content, hanging
Yeah.
out, talking, and then I edit that down into something that isn't terrible. But scripted content is a whole nother level, and you have to be talented to write really good scripted content, and you guys are.
Well, it is a lot of fun to do. I feel like one of the things that and we've talked about this before, but like I love the different types of content that are out there. And like you were saying earlier, there is a place for pretty much everybody. Like I know what we do is not everybody's cup of tea.
No.
But I think for a lot of people, like if you enjoy my humor, or if you enjoy Brian's humor or Jess, like that, that is fun for us. I think there are people that don't want it. Like they want real legitimate discussions, and I think we have those, but like for you guys do such detailed breakdowns of chapters. Like I think there's something really enthralling about that, especially if you're a fan, is to hear like, oh, I didn't even notice that when I read it, let me go back and read it again. Like sometimes those discussions actually cause you to go back and reread again because you want to catch even more.
And that's the hit of adrenaline that keeps me coming back, because I am in no way, or at least wasn't when I started the podcast, an expert on Wheel of Time, right? I was trying to find all the things that I was missing. I wanted to sit down with my friends and talk about this book series that, like, I'm pretty sure I'd read a lot and I thought I knew everything that had happened, but I kept finding things, or people had different opinions, and the more I got into it, the more I realized, yeah, like, I missed a lot, and the more detail I go into, the more I find. Almost no episode goes by where I don't go, oh, I didn't realize that.
I catch something new every time I reread the series now, and that to me is such a quality of good writing, because there is a lot of depth where you can read the series and enjoy it and not even understand half the things that went on.
Right.
Because I think that is true. Like I would poll
less than half.
How many people here in the chat right now with, and again, some of you have seen videos or you figured this out on your own, but how many of you feel like you could sufficiently explain what happened at the Eye of the World in the books? In the chat.
That's rough.
So like, let's hear, it'll take a second for the chat to catch up with us, Seth, but how many of you feel like you could do that? And that's one of those things where you actually physically can't know what happened at the Eye of the World until probably book 4 and 5. Like you can't actually understand what went down until you get there.
I would say you really can't understand it after multiple rereads. I mean, there's so much that isn't obvious and is never really fully explained. Yeah.
Yep. Now, for all of you saying nope, I do have a video that explains what happened at the Eye of the World, so you'll have to search that. There is a video that talks about it if you really want to go through it, because there is actually an answer. The Eye of the World is easy to explain. Falma, on the other hand, not easy to explain. Eye of the World, though, can be explained. Everything that happened there actually has kind of a backing in other stuff we learn later. I can get into the basics of it right now, but we're messing with dream shards and
Yeah,
skimming.
yeah.
Like
We
this
can
is
have a debate about exactly what is happening. Like, I feel like there are a
yep.
few things where you could say, like, well, that's a dream shard, or maybe it's something else. Like, there's a few other like debates like that you could
Well,
have. But
Rand skims, and he actually
yeah,
reminds himself. And this is one thing that's very explicit in the books that most people don't catch. It's one sentence and you miss it. Rand actually in A Shadow Rising refers back to skimming the first time because he skimmed the first time at Eye of the World.
absolutely.
The staircase was a skimming platform,
Mm-hmm.
and he talks about it. Like he remembers it in like one line. Like I said, it's one line and you miss it,
It's like,
but
this
he
feels
remembers it.
familiar, and he's like, oh yeah,
Yep.
I did it once. Yep.
So yeah. Anyways, that's just an example of one of those things where you definitely have no effing clue what happened when you're reading
Right.
that the first time. Like you're just kind of like, what? But
Well, and Fallen gets a little more hand wavy because that's when the horn was blown.
yep.
And the horn is the most hand wavy thing. The horn is the softest magic in Wheel of Time. We
Yep.
don't get a definition of where it came from. We don't get a definition of where it's going. We don't know its limits. We don't really know its powers. It seems to merge realities somehow. It's just when you blow the horn, whatever needs to happen, it is Dusok's whatever. It is the horn from the clouds and gods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And does it merge Teleron? I think there's like a theory that I think is a pretty sound one that it merges Teleron Riyadh and like, and I think that makes some sense, right? But yeah. So here we go. Here's a question. Okay, but who spoke in Rand's head in all caps at the Eye of the World? That's a good question.
I think it has to be the creator.
Even though Robert Jordan said that it wasn't. Or he said that the creator doesn't speak to people after he had written that book. He didn't directly address that scene, but he said that.
And this is where I will quote Harriet. Robert Jordan lies.
Uh-huh.
Robert Jordan lies a lot. I don't trust him. I really don't. It's either the creator or the Dark One, right?
Right.
Those are the only two all caps voices we get.
Or now this is super spoilery. Could it be Nakomi?
Yeah, so I think Nakomi is less of a big person. I think she's more of a minor mystery than a big mystery. I think she's just...
Is she what Rand becomes?
No, not at all. That's like, I don't buy any of those. I don't think
she
she's
does
a
some of the
creator.
similar things. She just
see, I don't think so. This is we can go into that whole scene with her and Avienda and what actually happens. I think Avienda enters the world of dreams. I think she's the last of the Gen Aiel who's been hanging out in the world of dreams. I think she might be a hero of the Horn Gen Aiel. But there's other options. There's also a possibility she was hanging out in Ruidian, right? Because it was cut off from the world of dreams. It was his own little zone, right? So she lives in that zone as the last of the Gen.
And how is that, by the way? By the way, thank you, Jay or Hybrid Havoc. Appreciate you. But how is it that they even cut off Ruidian from the world?
We don't know anything about Ruidian.
Was there a dream spike there? Was there right? Like,
I mean, Kalendor was there at one point, right? Like, did they use Kalendor to?
Well, we don't know the Kalendor was there. We know Kalendor was given at Paradis, and it was given to the Aiel, along with other things. But then we don't know how it got to. It doesn't make sense.
Well, the Aes Sedai in his vision, they talk about creating the eye, and they talk about locking away the sword.
They talk about what they're going to do.
Yeah, with the sword.
That was still at the beginning of the breaking. So that was the leftover Aes Sedai hanging out in Paradis as everything was falling apart. That's what they were doing.
I'm pretty sure there was a scene in Ruidian where there's the four last Aes Sedai of the Gen Aiel. They're actually Aes Sedai.
I don't think that was Kalendor though. I think that was, they don't hand anything. They tell them what they're going to be doing. They don't give them anything at that point. Kalendor was given out by the Aes Sedai who initially set the Aiel on their path. Well, they didn't. They handed it off. They handed other things off. I don't think they handed off Kalendor to the Gen. Does that make sense? Like the remaining Aes Sedai?
No, I don't. I think, but in that scene, they were talking about creating the eye, locking Kalendor into the stone, and
the gens, the Gen. I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's been a minute. I'll have to go back.
Yeah, I don't think so.
All right. Fair
Um,
enough.
I mean, you could be right. I don't think so. I think that was with when the Semestra was there. Like that
Hmm.
was Paradisen where that happened,
Okay.
which is
Uh,
odd, by the way. Why did they have Kalendor? Because Kalendor is a Sa'angreal for the true power. Like, why would they have even had it? Who made it?
mhm.
Right?
Well,
There's a whole bunch of other
yeah.
questions that come up from that. And did
My
they know that it did that?
and my understanding is that the whole channeling the true power was it's flawed. They made a mistake, right? It was made in haste. It was not made properly, and the true power thing was a unintended side effect. According to, again, that's one of those things that's
Yeah.
like, or maybe there was a dark friend channeler involved who threw a little true power in the mix.
Somebody would have had to have channeled be able to channel the true power,
Right.
I would think,
You
to
would
be able
think.
to do that, right?
Right.
But then how would the shadow not have known about it, right? Like, there's just a whole bunch of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
where does that come from?
Right.
Um, who made the portal stones? Because if they're implied they came before the Age of Legends, but yet the second age is considered to maybe be our age.
I think we're
Does
first
that
age.
mean no? We're second age.
Or second age.
So does that mean that the second age was like the end of the second age is when portal stones came about? There are some oddities there, but nevertheless.
Well, and the studying of the portal stones is what led to the creation of the ways and gateways in the
Mhm.
first place, right? So, there was clearly an older magic, um, of some kind, or older, wiser people. There's implications that there is another civilization, right? Like, we live on technology, they live on channeling. Somewhere in one of these ages, there's like this whole other
I
technology magic
want
that
to say
exists.
Luz Theron talks about how they colonized the stars and shit. Like, this
Hmm.
is not like I think I remember him saying something like that. So it's like,
Visited, maybe? I'm not sure about
yeah, like
colonized. Yeah.
visited. And Robert Jordan said with a powerful enough Sangreal, they could travel to other planets.
Hmm. Totally. Gateways, I
Yeah,
mean,
like
like,
there's so many implications to it to think like how far. I'm actually super interested. I know it's never going to happen, and Red Eagle's behind it, so it makes me sick at my stomach to think about it. But like, I would love a really well done Fall of the Age of Legends series.
sure. Yeah. Go back
Not
in
a
time.
movie.
Yeah.
I want to see a series that documents sort of like Fear of the Walking Dead, watching civilization fall apart. Like, I love that stuff. Just seeing paradise break down. Um,
I'm
and
not sure what.
subtly.
Yeah, I enjoy that. I'm not sure how much of a story you have in that. I mean, I
Well,
guess.
they have there's some character dynamics there, and
Yeah.
you have the shadow growing,
Hmm.
right? So think about like maybe the Star Wars prequels is
Hmm.
probably a good analogy here, right? Like, we start off with the pinnacle of democracy, and you've got the Jedi at their full power, and right, but yet you have this very subtle manipulation going on that starts in the very first movie. Now, again, those aren't great.
Yeah,
They're
I
not
was gonna
great.
say.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
nevertheless, like there's
They
still a
ruined my
story,
childhood. I know
right?
people do like them now, but man, I
Well,
was
I
so
don't think
disappointed
I
in
don't
those
like them now.
movies. I know. Yeah.
But you
Well,
still are watching the fall of a particular, like, it's really supposed to be Anakin Skywalker's story, right? The fall of Anakin, like,
yeah.
that subtle, like, that's the plot. And I think they could create some plots within that. And there's definitely the Forsaken that are interesting as hell. And I would love to see what Luz Theron did to
Yeah. I'd
wrong these
love to
people
see.
so bad that they hate him so much they
Right.
want to.
I was gonna say, I can't wait to see 6 identical stories about men who were jealous of Lewis Theron, and went over to the Shadow because of it. Right? Like, there's some implications, but the the male Forsaken in particular, I have no desire to find out about their backstory.
Nope.
They have the dumbest backstories. Like, they're like, I wanted to be powerful and beat Lewis
Honestly,
Theron.
outside of Grendel
Yeah.
and possibly Lanfear, none of them have compelling backstories.
No. I mean, maybe Asmodean, I wanted to be the best, and I did that just by killing
I
anyone
actually
who's
think he's
better than me.
stupid.
Yeah,
But
but again, same. Yeah, their backstory is not great. Just because, like, and I don't mean to say that from their bad characters. I just mean from a story, right? Like, from character-wise, sure, I like their motivations, right? They're great.
no, I don't. I
Yeah.
actually,
Yeah.
I'll say something controversial. I think
Yeah.
most of the Forsaken suck.
You think
I think
you
they're
phoned
poorly
them in?
written. I think they're
Yeah.
poorly conceived. Um,
You
I
think
think
you
they
went for
could
the
have
number
done a much better
13?
job with them.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can have 13, but they were never really given true. Most of them were given stupid motivations, and they're not relatable motivations. Like I think most people tend to think Grendel is their favorite because I feel like Grendel. Um, I think it's conceivable. You have this person who is this reserved, and then she has this freedom all of a sudden in the Dark One to become this hedonist, right?
We all had that college roommate.
Yeah, I mean, you have it, and it's no, and you can see how she, but you also can also appreciate how she uses that facade as a deflection to actually be super intelligent. I could maybe see Semirog also because Semirog is actually just batshit crazy. She
Yeah.
just handles it differently. Like she's she's a sadist. So, but and she's actually genuinely scary. And I think the books did a horrible job of not making her more scary.
One of the
Like they
issues,
build
yeah.
her up, but then they don't do anything with it that really makes her seem like, oh shit.
One of my favorite things about the kin that I don't think the other channelers that Jordan did a really good job is he shows multiple lives and multiple lifetimes.
Mm-hmm.
So many of the like these Forsaken have been alive for hundreds of years, and it feels like all their accomplishments and stuff would be in a normal 20-year lifespan. Like, show me multiple careers, multiple, there's a lot implied, but we don't see the many, 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 many layers of them being good, then being bad. I mean, even just in our politicians that we see who are in
Mm-hmm.
the spotlight for 10 years, there's layers to what they do and what they say and how they change. Let's see that with the Forsaken, right? They could be much more layered in the past,
Yeah.
but we don't. That's not the story he was telling.
Yeah. Well, guys, Seth, I would love to keep going here, but I try to keep these to an hour. Real quick here, let me throw this up. Um, SpoilerCon is coming this weekend. Obviously, in-person tickets are not a go anymore. Heck yeah.
SpoilerCon
But
2021.
online tickets people can still get. How much are online tickets?
Oh gosh, I should know that off the top of my head. They're around $10. It might be
Okay,
12.
so they're not
Yeah.
expensive,
No.
guys. Support SpoilerCon. Hop on there. Watch some really cool content. Drink on your own while they drink.
Drink with us, just in a different place.
And maybe who knows? Maybe we'll put together another convention for everybody. Who knows? But yeah. So thank you for coming on.
Oh, thank you so much for
It's
having me.
been
This was a
real. We'll have to
blast.
do this again.
Yeah, and I really, really appreciate the shout out.
Yeah, absolutely. If you guys want, every time after on our Monday shows, I will be in my Discord server. We will be doing some quick voice chatting if you'd like to join us and be a part of that. So hop into Discord if you don't know what Discord is or you're not a part of it. Just click the link in the description of the video and it'll help you sign up, and then you'll be invited to the server, and then you can come in and talk to us. So I will be in there shortly if you guys all want to join me there. But hey, thanks for coming. We'll see you next week.
See you
Take
next
care.
week. Bye.